Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys board gaming podcast. I'm your host, Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And joining us again this week is Wes.
Hello again, everyone.
Hello, Wes.
Hello, Zach.
I'm sure nobody's figured out that we record both episodes on the same day.
Just shush.
Not at all.
At the same time.
Yeah, I wonder what would happen.
Well, I mean,
At the same time? Yeah.
exactly. Simultaneously.
We're like those monks that can talk with like two sets of vocal cords.
God.
I have no idea how to do that.
Lots and lots of training.
Yeah.
And also having a second pair of vocal cords.
Yeah. That's the mutation that the monks need to become a monk.
Are they X-Men?
Yeah, that's their power.
No, it's their power that they unlock at 10th level.
10th level monk.
Vocal cords.
It seems like a shitty power for 10th level.
Yeah.
No, because when you're in a fight, you start using both vocal cords, and it sounds so weird that people are like, wait, what the fuck is happening?
I'm pretty sure
they just
aren't
don't
gonna
do
that.
anything.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of those key powers you can't activate unless you use your second voice.
Anyway, so this is ostensibly a discussion episode.
And we're discussing
Sounds like we're discussing
monks.
things. Yeah.
I'm currently Googling monk 10th level skills.
I honestly have no idea what monks get at 10th level.
Neither do I. Everything has changed so much since I played.
Well, I haven't played a monk.
Don't they get like a
since,
finger of death or something like that? Or is that
They
like,
do, but not at 10th level.
okay?
Anyway, this week's
We're trying to have a discussion over here, Adrian.
It's not the discussion for the episode.
You get purity of body, which makes you immune to disease and poison.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Sounds like you can't get drunk then.
It's true. No, you can't.
Yeah.
It's the same with paladins. They can't get drunk.
Yeah.
Just fucking kill me now, right?
They're like Wolverine.
Well, then
you just
just
got to
don't be
drink
a
way
fucking paladin.
more.
I like paladins.
I do too.
We'll have to have a discussion about RPG classes at some point.
Yeah, no, because my goal as a DM is to make my paladin players fall. That's like 100%. 100%.
Oh, we need to play together then, because
Oh, yeah.
I like playing paladins that like are just a hair away from falling.
100% of my DMing style is not to, I mean, it's yes to facilitate the story. It's not against the players, but it's picking their philosophical points and challenging them. And if they fail, that's their own fault. I'm just putting something in front of them I'm just trying to challenge them. And if you fall, that's your own goddamn fault for being a paladin.
Fuck you, paladins.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say. Having morals.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of morals, we're going to talk about board game ethics some more.
I thought it was about eels. Damn it.
It's moray. Moray eels.
Morels would be mushrooms.
It's true.
But no, so we discussed the last time we were live. We had Caitlin on the show as a guest. This time we have Wes.
Yeah.
Subtle differences.
I'm not Caitlin.
That's the only difference.
But we talked a little bit about board gaming journalism ethics and ostensibly review biases. We didn't really get around to review biases, which is what we're going to kind of come back around and talk about today. But before we launch into the discussion, we had an email that was directly related to this that I'm going to have Jeff read to start this off. So, Jeff, go ahead and read that email.
Emails at milehighgameguys.com. This email comes from David, titled Anchoring and Review Scores. He links to a YouTube video, which we watched. Extra Credits, a YouTube channel that creates think pieces about video game design, had a video this week discussing anchoring and review scores. I'm sure each of you can take 7 minutes it takes to watch the video, but for the sake of the listeners, here is their blurb about the video. The first data we see affects our opinions about everything afterwards. So a good review score makes us like the game more, and an apparent sale makes us more eager to buy a game with a higher price point. This anchoring effect is even built into game design itself. They start off with a study that is done with the game Plants vs. Zombies. They divided people into 3 groups. The first group was told the game reviewed at 91. The second group reviewed at a 61, and the third group, nothing. Then each subject played the game for a while. Afterwards, each group was asked to give the game a score. The first group averaged to 85, the second group to 71, and the third group to 79. Obviously, this is just one study, but anchoring is seen in other areas as well, such as negotiation. I'd encourage y'all to watch the video as they discuss the topic in more depth. I'm curious if this changes y'all opinions about paid reviews at all. Given that a positive review from a reviewer you follow is likely to make you feel more positively about a game and possibly overlook its flaws. David. Also, those were totally y'alls in there.
He's from Texas.
I did not put those in there.
Anyway, the video is really good, and we did all watch it actually right before recording this specific episode.
Yeah.
So it's very fresh in our minds. Anyway, we'll include a link to the video in the show notes for this episode so that you guys can watch it as well. But I think that it serves as a good starting off point for this episode to tie it well to last episode, especially the overall debate. Last episode had a lot to do with like paid reviews and whether we think that receiving payment for a review, one, as reviewers on our side, influences things, or on especially more your side, Wes, not necessarily specific to board games, but any type of thing that gets reviewed. If somebody being paid to review something influences how you feel about that review. Like if you think that paid reviews are super bad and that you know, that immediately lowers the value of the review, or if, you know, you feel that you come to trust reviewers through a body of work and that whether they're paid or not doesn't matter. This brings a little bit of question into that. Like clearly, if you hear a positive review, that's going to influence you positively. If you hear a negative review, that influences you negatively through this whole anchoring effect that the video talks about. Zach, you look like you were about to say something.
No, I was just going to ask Wes, did you have any opinions on our previous topic before we got into this? That's all.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's 100% true. I mean, I don't follow a whole lot of board game media in general. I'm mostly just you guys, but I watch some other YouTube channels and read reviews from time to time. But that's just not part of my process for buying games.
Okay.
Very much my process for buying games is I don't want to buy a game unless it's something I have already played before and I have made an opinion of it. But certainly because I play games with you guys a lot, if it's a game that's getting a lot of good reviews, you guys want to play it. And then I will want to play it because you guys are playing it, or like you guys are playing it, so I will play it with the understanding that this is a game that people have been talking about. And that definitely, I'm sure, does have an effect.
And that's why 3 of the 4 of us own Terraforming Mars.
Jesus Christ.
Only 3?
I don't know that.
Oh, speaking of, aside from first mention, I saw that it was like $38 on like CSI today.
Yeah,
like, so
crazy.
it's a great time to go buy Terraforming Mars.
It's a great time
that
to go buy like 7 of them.
6 months ago, people were paying hundreds of dollars for Terraforming Mars.
I thought it was a good deal when I got mine for like $68.
I got mine for a little under 50, and I felt pretty damn good about it.
6 months ago, I got mine for 55, and it took them like 3 months to ship it.
Yeah.
Which concept of anchoring that this video talks about, the base price for Terraforming Mars was like $80. It's like the MSRP. There for a while, it was selling for like hundreds.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not hundreds, but over 100.
Well over MSRP.
And so now seeing it at 38, you're like, holy shit, like that's a fantastic deal. Which, I mean, yes, for coming from an $80 MSRP, 38's a pretty damn good deal. It's over 50% off of the MSRP. But I can honestly say from playing the game, it's a fantastic game.
No, it's totally worth $38. It's totally worth $60. It's totally worth $80.
Yeah, I would not have been upset.
The play experience is worth that amount of money.
Yeah.
Me getting Zach to order that for me as fast as possible off Amazon when it was like 3 left at $68 was well worth it.
Yeah. So, and I certainly don't feel bad about the fact I paid more money for that game.
Nor do I.
So that kind of,
You guys know I'm buying that right now, right?
Are you really? Yes. Fantastic. 4 out of 4 people own Terraforming Mars in this room
Nice.
now.
Now I just have to buy fucking $60 worth of other shit.
Hey, but now you're getting a great deal on the base game.
You could buy a headset and a new mic arm.
Yeah. On Cool Stuff Inc. Yes,
Oh, that's
totally.
right. we were talking about Amazon, and I was thinking that it was on Amazon.
No.
Yeah.
So I got to add the expansion. And I'm completely serious.
I mean, you could get an insert.
I don't doubt you. So
You could get an insert or something to an organizer. I don't know which ones they have on
sell
Cool
broken
Sync.
token on cool stuff.
Yeah.
Well, but there are other options that are almost as good.
anyway, back to the topic at hand.
Anyway,
so to talk about anchoring for a little bit here, because this comes into play when people we talked about last week, or not last week, the last episode about this, where even some people consider getting a free review copy to be something that should be very well disclosed, which we've always disclosed when we've reviewed review copy. But even something that little, like that positive move from the publisher to send you a review copy, you know, some people feel that could positively influence you. And this is one of those things, like there's been people who think that these conversations are pointless, which, I mean, I can see like why some people don't care, but at the same time, I think it's an important discussion to have, just because that idea that, like, you know, in theory, people who are listening to our reviews are listening because they trust us and they want, you know, good reviews. So if there's things that can affect that set that anchoring idea that, like, oh, this is something that's really good, and then you rate it really good, and then it gets people to play it, you know, like that could be problematic. Like, you know, if it's artificially inflating a score.
I usually go into a lot of what we do pretty dark knowledge-wise about the game itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I do have some preconceived notions about mechanics and things like that. Like, there's certain mechanics I like more than others, but on a game-to-game basis, it's hard to say, like, hey, I really, really am going to like this game because it's blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I try not to do that.
Well, I think it comes down to honesty, and it's all psychology also. It's all marketing, and it doesn't matter what you're saying. You can take the money and give a good review because you got the review copy or the money for reviewing or whatever, and people don't know that, and they're going to think that it's a good game because you said it's a good game. Or you can be upfront and say, hey, we got this as a review copy, or this is a paid review, and then people are going to think differently, but it's still a marketing scheme. And you saying, I'm being honest about this, we did get this as a review for free, is just another way for me to like the game because the person who's telling me about it is being honest about it.
Yeah.
Either way, it's still marketing, and you have to be aware of all of the different strategies that marketers use.
So a question that kind of comes up from the video, and that David discussed this in the email, where he talked about that they used Plants for Zombies for the baseline, and they told one group that, hey, it got a 91 for review, and then they told the other group that it got a 61 for review, and then they told the third group nothing. And so then after playing, everybody rated it. So the group that heard that it got a high review and then accordingly rated it higher versus the group that heard it got a lower score and accordingly rated it lower, how much, like, do you guys think, like, it's kind of a philosophical question here, if you hear a game got good reviews and that makes you like think more positively of it, then, I mean, is that bad that you're enjoying something more? Or did the two groups both enjoy it the same and just rated it different because they'd heard different ratings? Like, were they closer to the third group that heard nothing and rated it in between both of those? Like, you know, I mean, if you hear a positive thing and then that leads you to think positive things, like, isn't it good to have positive feelings and think positive things about things?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't think it's a philosophical question. It's a biological question. We're social beings. We've evolved to want to do what the rest of the group is doing. If people are saying good things, you want to say good things because evolutionarily that's a good trait to have.
Well, so are you just saying those things? Like, are these people who rated it higher after they heard it got a high rating? Are they sitting there playing and be like, man, this game's bullshit?
Oh,
but
no. I mean, I'm not saying
it's
it's good or bad or one way or the other. It's not something that I think you can have a value statement on.
Okay.
It's a hardwired thing that's the way that we react, and marketers take advantage of that.
So, Jeff, Zach, do you guys have any thoughts on the anchoring video and anchoring in general, how it affects these things that you want to touch on?
Plants vs. Zombies is an amazing game. Love the game.
You were in the 91.
But how many reviews did you read beforehand?
I don't know. That game came out so long ago that it's like a weird example
hard
for
to
me
say.
No, it's
on
true.
that specific thing. But I am probably influenced by like that hotness meter on BGG.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like, what games should I be looking at? Like, what is everyone else looking at? Why should I want that game? And then I want to buy all those things.
Yeah. I'll give a good example. We just saw Blade Runner 2049. And
So good.
It was. And when I looked at Rotten Tomatoes, it was at 99%. And so I was like, holy shit, people fucking love this movie. And then I didn't look at it again. And then I saw the movie and I was like, oh shit, this is great. I even liked it better than the first one. But then I saw the Rotten Tomatoes afterwards and it was 89%, which, like, even 89 to 99 is a big difference, I think.
Yeah.
91.
Is it 91 now?
No, you first saw it at what score?
99.
Oh, was it 90? Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems artificially inflated, but
I mean, that was just like the first impression sort of thing. And so I saw that and I was like, oh shit. Like the people that first saw it really loved it. And I was like, okay. And then I didn't look afterwards. And so
Now it's an 88.
it is at 88 now? Yeah. Okay. So if I had seen it at 88 or 89, I'd be like, oh, people really liked it versus holy shit, people love this movie. And so I think even that amount of difference colors your expectations a little bit.
oh yeah, it's I'm sure somebody who actually knows anything about psychology will correct me in an email. They better. But that's kind of, our brains kind of work in two different speeds. We have a fast brain and a slow brain. And if you see something that primes you or anchors you, you want your fast brain will be like, oh, that's easy. I'll just go with, it was 91. That's great. I'll form my opinion in relation to that.
Yeah.
But if you have to stop and think and use your slow brain, then you have to think, well, what I have to rate this with no reference point. So now I have to go into it and think about what other games I've played that are like this and what I liked about them. And it becomes more thought intensive. Mm-hmm. It's much easier to let yourself be anchored.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, so like Zach, with your like thing there about Blade Runner, I mean, like you fully admit that like it might have primed you to enjoy the movie more, seeing that it was that high one. But I mean, you enjoyed the movie.
I did.
Like,
yeah.
So does any of that matter? Like if you're primed to enjoy it more and then you enjoy it, like
if people have been like, if it had been like at 20%, even if it was the same exact movie, I probably would have been like, oh man, this is way too slow. And versus now where it's because it was so high, it was like, oh man, this was so slow that it let you absorb a lot of the atmosphere,
The world,
the world, exactly. So if it had been the exact same movie, but everyone was just if everyone hated on it, then I might have been like, I might have turned turned some positives of the movie that I thought into negatives because I was viewing it in a, oh man, everybody's hating this.
Well, so people talk about like part of the whole where these discussions come from is people feel like, publishers paying for reviews or, people getting free copies or whatever is artificially inflating scores.
Okay.
Like, so that's where people think there's a problem. Like a mediocre game is being rated as a good game is a great game. But if a good game is rated as a great game and you're like, holy shit, everybody loves this game, it's really popular, and then you play it and you're like, holy shit, this is a great game, everybody was right. You think the game's great. Like whether or not it was an influenced thought. Like, I mean, is that bad? Like, I don't know. I'm not necessarily sure that it is.
I don't think that's bad at all. I think even if everybody says every game is better than it actually is, if that means that somebody else actually looks at it with rose tinted glasses and is like, oh man, this is better. Like, this is as great as everybody else is saying. I think that's fine. As long as you think the game is good, then maybe after like 5 or 10 plays, you're just like, okay, well, I'm sort of settling on all the things I thought were great, and now it's just okay. But like, you really enjoyed it for that first couple, even up to 5 to 10 plays. I think that's fine.
And I mean, realistically, if you're getting 5 to 10 plays out of a board game, like, that's pretty awesome. Like, there's a lot of games on my shelf that have not been played 5 times.
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot of games on my shelf that haven't been played twice.
Yes.
Yep. So yeah, if a positive review is encouraging you to enjoy a game more and play it more, like, is that necessarily a bad thing? I'm with you. I don't think it necessarily is.
I don't think it's having a good experience is a good thing that people are upset about. I think it's I had this good experience, but only because you got paid money or because you tricked me into it. And that's where I think the controversy comes in, is people feeling like they've been lied to. And a lot of any of this is 100% marketing and psychology, and you're always being tricked about something. And the fact that you've realized that you were tricked about that one review, so what? I mean, if you had fun, you had fun. Yeah. But don't take it as I got suckered by a marketing scheme, boo-hoo. I mean, just have the fun if you had the fun, and if you didn't, then you didn't. But I mean, the marketing is the marketing. You're always being marketed to, period.
100%.
Yes. And actually, I have an anecdote on that, just about the marketing, is the fact that I forget. I was traveling with somebody, and then when we stopped to get a drink, I was like, man, I could really use the pomegranate juice. Like, they had a coconut one, and I got that. And then the person I was traveling with was like, like 10 miles ago, we saw a commercial, or we saw a billboard for this drink, right? And I was like, No, I have no idea. I had no idea. I was just like, no, this looked good. So yeah, we're definitely always getting.
And you still enjoy drinking
Yeah,
it.
it was great. It was great. It was delicious because coconut water and pomegranate juice are
Right.
delicious.
I think the problem isn't that you're being marketed to. It's thinking that because you've been marketed to that it invalidates your experience.
No, it definitely does.
And and I think that's the rub. Like, ultimately, you people, whether it's board games or any other media or whatever else, like if you're the kind of person who reads reviews before you make decisions, then in theory, the reviews you're looking at are ones you trust. Like I look at for movies, like I look at Rotten Tomatoes. Like that's a good one. It's kind of an aggregate, and like, I even notice like sometimes like, oh, the critic scores are really low, but man, the fan scores are through the roof. And it's like, sweet. So the people who watched it, who are more like me, because I'm not a movie critic, they really liked it. So screw what the movie critics say. I'll go watch it, and I don't like, there's times I disagree. There's lots of examples throughout all of things where something's really highly reviewed and I'm, consume it, whether it's movie, music, whatever. And I'm like, meh, I don't see what the hype was, where I don't understand why that person loved it, but I don't normally feel like I've been tricked. Like, I don't know. I feel like in those situations, it's usually something where I can chalk it up to I'm just different than that person. So like the things they liked about it aren't things that I personally enjoy. And I don't know. It's never really bothered me. Like this isn't a conversation I ever thought I would have, or like it's something I've never thought about until I got to where we are, where we're reviewing things. And like now being honest and ethical about my reviews is something that I care about. Like I want to be a positive influence.
What a loser.
unless the game is terrible, in which case you want to tell people that it's terrible.
Well, no, but I still think that's a positive thing. Like if I think a game's bad, like letting other people know, hey, stay away from this. It's bad. Like, or, especially like with our show, where the three of us have fairly different tastes, people who decide
Jeff and I have good taste. Yeah. Continue.
biting my tongue.
Yep.
So hard. But
I like how you're talking and then blood is coming out of your
Yes.
mouth.
Yeah, that sounds painful. You should probably stop.
But people who find themselves aligning with my particular taste, like if Zach and Jeff are both talking about a game and they're like, holy shit, this is the best game ever, I feel sometimes like especially in that situation, where it's like more like, hey, let me voice my concerns here just so that anybody, that everybody doesn't get so caught up in like loving this that, here are some concerns that I have coming from my perspective, and I think that's one of the things I like about our shows. We all kind of temper each other. Like we don't tend to run away with any game except for Terraforming Mars.
No
For
denying.
good reason.
Yeah,
No denying.
That all four of us own now.
Yes.
But yeah, so I encourage you all to go watch the anchoring effect video. It is it's only like 7 minutes.
and a lot of his other videos. That's a great channel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Extra credits.
But, and it goes into some other things that like I don't, we could, I guess, if we decide we want to go down the side path. They talk about things like pricing, pricing something high and then being willing to cut it down to 50% off. Oh my God, it's a great deal. Go buy the shit out of it. Like Steam sales. My Steam library is huge because it's like, oh shit, that game's only $2 because it's 80% off. I should buy it. And then never play it. So it was still just me throwing $2 into the void.
Yeah, that's the classic trick from marketers, telling you that you're saving $60 when you're still spending $2
Yeah,
or whatever,
exactly.
But so it touches on a lot of those things. It's a good video. I recommend watching
Yeah, definitely. And all his stuff. Sorry.
it. Yes.
Just a general plug for him. I've watched many things and I was like, that's great points. So,
It's a solid channel. It really is.
yeah.
To move this a little bit along the bias discussion track a little bit, Jeff, you had mentioned earlier that like you like certain mechanics and that you might be predisposed to enjoy games with those mechanics, and I think as everybody who listens to the show knows, there's things I really don't like in games and that might influence my opinion on things. So how do you, Jeff, we'll start with you. How do you, and do you try to balance your internal biases to give objective reviews, or do you just embrace that, hey, this is who I am and this is how I feel about things, and people who listen to me will understand that?
So I have some pretty general. I like a lot of things. It's hard to find things that I hate unless it's collectible card games.
We're going to review Magic next week.
Magic the Gathering. We
Just started stabbing cards. It's really weird.
You've actually just been funding our Magic the Gathering review with our Patreon money, which isn't even
You're
close
just fueling
to actually.
Jeff's habit.
Yeah, I guess I've just always kept a tempered opinion on pretty much all types of mechanics and genres and things like that, that it's really hard for me to come at anything with it being like offensive in the first place. It would have to be pretty rough to be anything that I couldn't like come in with a balanced view on. I guess that's a lot of like how I've played a lot of video games over the years. That's probably my best example of like categories of things that I'm like, not, but it's more like, that game's not for me. Like sports games. I'm not going to go play Madden. Like I'm going to play fucking Total War Warhammer 2. That's a game I want to play.
I like Madden. Well, actually, I like NCAA better.
What if there was a
That doesn't exist.
Total War
I know.
Warhammer Madden, like a Blood Bowl the video game?
There is a Blood Bowl the video game.
It's called Blood Bowl, the video game.
It's actually called Blood Bowl 2.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, Mutant League Football, Sega Genesis, Mutant League Hockey, fantastic. But and like Golf Story that I was talking about before, like you get hard sim on me and I kind of turn away. I don't have the time nor dedication to learn a whole sport because I didn't grow up with that. So, but with board games, it's different. I mean, I can always learn new mechanics and things like that. So it's hard to say, like with my general like of everything except Magic the Gathering, that I don't know. I like going in dark like as possible into playing a game, which might make me lose a lot of them, but it kind of lets me grow into actually playing and knowing the game from an objective standpoint.
Which, I mean, and that's kind of why one of the things that we do when we do our reviews, that we started adding, like it took a little while before we worked it into the show, but we talk about like our initial thoughts going into a game.
Okay.
Like what headspace were we in when we first sat down to play these games? You know, what kind of things had we heard? What were our feelings? Like, were we interested? Were we not? And then how did the game live up to or defy those expectations?
Yeah.
So to kind of bounce this over to you, Zach, what kinds of biases do you feel you have, and do you actively try to overcome them, or do you embrace them?
So obviously, I'm a human. Like, I can't be totally objective. Nobody can be totally objective.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a truly objective
Exactly.
review.
So I try and look at games with an open mind, but obviously there are certain type of games I don't like, and I'll be like, in spite of that, I'll look at this game. And, I'll try and figure out if it's a game that I like in spite of the fact that I don't like its subject matter or its mechanisms or just, its player interactions or any of that stuff. If it's a train theme or something like that.
When we finally play 18XX.
Exactly. I will try and look at it with an open mind, but I might not be able to get, to get past that. We'll see. But I am not going to be like, it's a train game. Fuck this game forever. I don't think that that's right, but I think you should, as long as you look at it with an open mind, even if it doesn't get past your biases, then, it's not really the game's fault.
Okay. Wes, before I bring this around to me, for a little bit of a change of pace, as ostensibly a non-reviewer type person, and I know you mentioned earlier you don't follow a lot of board game stuff, but maybe you do for like video games or other like things that you consume, movies, whatever. How much of a concern do you have about the objectivity? Again, keeping in mind that there's no such thing as true objectivity for the media, the reviews that you consume, or do you just like, or do you gravitate to people like, I know what your biases are and I embrace those because they're like mine?
I'm very much more like Jeff. I prefer to go into things dark and be aware that maybe this is a game that people that I know like, or this is a movie that people that I know are talking about. I almost read no reviews about anything for almost every movie I've seen. I don't watch trailers for them except for like big, exciting, hyped movies like Star Wars.
When you guys all make me leave the room to watch the Star Wars.
It's not my fault you don't want to be spoiled.
We didn't make you leave. It's just we were going to watch it.
Yeah.
Which, since I don't want to watch it, forced me to leave.
I mean, it was your choice.
If you don't leave, you're going to watch this thing you don't want to watch.
You could have stuck your fingers in your ears and not looked at the screen. I'm just saying you had choices.
But I mean, it's like any other journalism. It's like any other study of any sort of media, you're coming into it with your own biases. And the important part is recognizing that you have those biases and working with them, not assuming you can be objective. And especially in something as subjective as reviewing. Like if you're studying history, it's more likely that you're able to be objective than if you're studying board gaming or like reviewing media.
As soon as the opinions come into
right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of opinions in history also. I mean, I've felt, and I was like, I don't want to go too, like, but like if you're a journalist,
tell me we need Andrew in here.
I cannot wait for Andrew's email.
Oh no, I know he's going to jump all over me. That's half the reason I was like, I don't know if I should even go here. But like in journalism, you're trying to theoretically come to an objective truth of what the facts of the matter are. But every good journalist who goes to a journalism school is taught that you have your biases and you have to recognize them and work around them and with them, not ignore them and presume that you can be objective. And I think that board gaming media, any sort of reviewing media, is still journalism in that regard, but it's so much more subjective that it's impossible to have any kind of straight opinion. And if it's important that you say when you go into it, this is, a game with a lot of randomness, I'm probably not going to like it. And then give so that that's one thing that I do like that you guys do is you say, these were my opinions going into it. This is what I actually thought of it.
Yeah. So then for my 2 cents on this, just probably going to get rambly. Just buckle your seats.
I don't have any buckles.
Yeah, your chairs don't have seatbelts.
Listeners who are, in cars, I don't know.
Buses also don't have seatbelts.
Yeah, well, that's why I said in cars, not in buses.
Should I finish this rum? Is that what I'm hearing?
Zach, you shouldn't be drinking and driving.
Oh, God.
So for me personally, shocker, I'm a very opinionated person.
I don't believe it.
And I've noticed, especially since we started the show, I have become very critical of board games in general. I used to be.
I wouldn't say just board games.
Well, board games in particular.
Oh, there you go.
In general, I've become more critical as I've started to exercise that part of my brain that looks at things from a critical perspective,
which is important.
I agree. I have in board gaming, especially, I've identified things that like I've talked about this before, where back when I was just playing games and I wasn't trying to review them or be media or whatever.
Or whatever.
Yeah, the big air quotes on that. I played games, and if I had a game that went bad, a lot of times I would just chalk it up like, oh, whatever. Like it was that particular time at the table. Like, oh, that game of Munchkin took forever. Well, that was probably just the unfortunate circumstances we were in while we were playing Munchkin, not like, maybe that's a problem with Munchkin. And then as I've reviewed games and look at things more critically, I start to see that there are problems in some games that lead to situations where I'm not going to probably ever enjoy that game. Sometimes that's come from playing games to death. Like it took me a while of playing Cards Against Humanity. Like I legitimately enjoyed Cards Against Humanity for a while. And then the more I played it, the more all of its many, many problems rose to the surface and became impossible to see through. And so although I try to keep those kinds of biases in mind, especially now that I've identified things that I really don't like in games that negatively affect my opinion of games, I know that's an area where I really struggle with. There's a lot of games that come up on our review circuit that I immediately am like, god damn, I do not want to do this game. And it's something that I struggle with, putting that bias to the side.
Whenever we record Tales of the Arabian Nights.
Yeah, and that was one of the worst, especially because that was one that I didn't like before I reviewed games. That'd be like if we tried to review Munchkin, it would be very hard for me to keep my very strong dislike of a game like Munchkin out of a review. And so when we do the actual reviews, especially when we have our featured review, that's where I really try to take as much of my personal biases out as I can. I'm not going to pretend that I give objective reviews because, again, as we've established, there's no such thing as a truly objective review. But I try to take as much of my biases out and focus on, if I talk about why I don't like a game during a review, I try to focus on, what related to the mechanics exactly, or how this mechanic, even if it's one I don't like, how I think that negatively affects the game or things like that. Later, if we're discussing a game in banter, then I'm it's not part of the review, I'm more likely to just be like, oh yeah, I
Heated.
fucking hate this game.
Heated opinions.
Heated opinions. So it's a tricky thing. I agree, and I hope that when we do reviews, we do a good enough job, all of us together collectively, of covering things. Not removing our biases because we can't, but at least acknowledging them enough and.
I know.
In a positive way.
I know. I try and do that. Like even when we did Food Chain Magnate or something, which I fucking hate that game. But it's just like the game mechanically it was fine. It's just I did not like it.
Yeah.
And so I think adding a lot of, at the very least, saying this is a shitty game versus I hate this game is very different, because one, you're saying of this is my opinion. I personally hate this game versus and I know that there are games that we have played where I've been like, this is a shitty game, objectively, or as close as you can get. You're just like, this is just garbage. So
Everyone that made this game should die.
yeah.
Or at least never make a game again.
No.
No.
No, they should die.
Yeah.
Sticking to the guns on that one. I like it.
Yeah.
Because they could change their minds.
Well, and that's one of the things that I do really enjoy about your guys' show, is that you do have a diverse selection of opinions on things, and you still review things when one of you isn't going to like it.
Yeah.
And you still get honest opinions that I can base it. If my gaming opinions tend more towards Adrian or Zach, then I'll know that based on what one of the other of them says, then I'm more likely to actually like that game than not.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
It's not a show where everybody has the same opinions. There's a lot of discourse that's really enjoyable.
Yeah. To bring it back around one more time to the anchoring and a slightly different topic, just for another round of a segment of anchoring. Jeff, you had mentioned when you were talking earlier about your biases and stuff that you see things on the BGG hotness list, and you're like, hey, this is on the hotness. People are talking about this. It's getting popular. Holy shit, that makes me want to buy it, own it, play it, whatever. And this was a big thing that came up with Mechs vs. Minions. Mechs vs. Minions was an excellent example of how the board gaming hobby is, albeit slowly, but still is changing. Riot came out, a video game company with a huge bankroll. They brought in people from the industry to make a game so that it had quality mechanics, and they focused really high on the components. Mechs vs. Minions was one of our end of the year tops for component quality.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so Riot Games did all of that, and then they sent it to a bunch of notable, influential reviewers in the industry, and then put them under an embargo, which was almost not heard of at all in the industry. And then on pretty much the exact same day, out of nowhere, it was like, hey, here's this game that's going to be coming out and is available now for pre-order at, what was it, $80?
Yes. It's $79.95 or something like that. Yeah.
$80. And it was just everywhere. Mm-hmm. Went from nobody knowing about it to number one on the hotness list on BGG for a long time. It was all over board game, the subreddit, Twitter, everywhere. Just holy shit, this game. Pretty much all of those initial reviews were positive reviews.
Yep.
And then I don't remember the last time I heard anybody talk about Mechs vs. Minions. That game has fallen off the map.
Well, I think a lot of that just happens to be just with all the new games the industry has become here's a great game. Okay, well, here's another great game. Now here's another great game. And so you can even see with the the top 100, all of these new games are ones that just flow up into there. And then a lot of older games have just been slowly dropping off. Catan isn't even on fucking, it's 200 or something like that?
I don't think it's quite that low, but Catan has fallen substantially.
Yeah. So I think it's just become, just like video games and movies, it is slowly become more and more of a, here's the new thing, here's the new thing, here's the new thing.
So from an anchoring and bias thing, like Jeff, you freely admitted that you see the hotness and you're like, holy shit, I'm interested in that thing because it's the top of the hotness. Mm-hmm. Whereas I know I have almost the exact opposite reaction myself. I start to see something rocket up the hotness, and it really, I mentioned Mechs vs. Minions because it was one of the first ones that really hit me, whereas that kind of hype is probably manufactured.
I mean, but like I think for me at least, it's because board games are becoming more mainstream, compared to what they were before, that it's now reaching what happens with movies and what happens with video games, where like Clank in Space was the same sort of thing because it was released on the Wednesday of Gen Con, that there are a bunch of people that had preview copies that just weren't allowed to say anything until they wanted to announce it.
Yeah.
And so yes, I would say it's manufactured, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's false.
It's always marketing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you feel like you've been marketed to or not, you're always being marketed to. And half of anything is knowing that and still trying to be honest with your own biases and knowing that going into it, the way that I feel about this is partly because that's what the mob is thinking, partly because that's what the mob has been told to think. And I'm part of the mob.
Jeff, do you have anything you want to chime in on that? Like, as the guy who freely admitted to following the hotness?
So it's more just like things I want to look at and be interested in. I'll check it out, and like Seventh Continent's like fucking bold top redlining at the top of the hotness right now. But so is like Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. But then Scythe has been on there for like, I don't know, a year and a half.
Yeah. I think
in the top like 25%.
I think a lot of the hotness is whether or not it is like sustained hotness, because I've seen games that like from the 90s that someone like Trump the Game was literally on the hotness. It was number 1 or number 2 at some point.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've played that game.
Yeah, no,
and objectively it's garbage.
Objectively garbage.
Like everything. Yeah. Not going to go there.
Like everything that I'm not going to finish this sentence about.
Yeah. So I, for me at least, to hijack it from Jeff real quick about the hotness, is that just seeing that something is on the hotness doesn't necessarily mean, oh, this is something I should check out. But if I've been on the website like over, a week and a half, and even 2 weeks, and it's still on there, like around the same position, it's like, oh man, why is this really, why is this
like,
why is everybody interested in this?
Pandemic Legacy Season 1 that is still on the hotness?
Yeah.
That's a great game still.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, photosynthesis was like redlining for a long time.
Oh, yeah,
and now
definitely.
it's at like the bottom, I don't know, 6 or 7.
But it's still on there.
Still there. But maybe now it's not like, maybe it's cooling off a little bit. Maybe it's not as great as we all thought it was.
Isn't that still because
it's not widely released yet?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of how I feel like with Seven Continent. Like, it's tops right now because it's on its second Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And copies are out there.
Yeah. Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, I remember when we talked about that coming out and all the questions we had about it, and it was near the top of the hotness then. It fell off. Now it just released. It rocketed right back up there. And the BGG hotness is an interesting thing because, I'm not entirely sure how they determine that list.
It's mostly community fed.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean,
like ratings, interest, like probably page clicks on those specific games.
Yeah. So I without knowing the exact mix of those things, it's hard to cumulatively say. Like, I think that, especially when you look at like instead of the hotness, something like the BGG top 10.
Okay.
You can see again what we're talking about. Like, for a long time, Twilight Struggle was number 1 for years.
Yep.
Until it was finally supplanted by Pandemic Legacy Season 1, which, like, at the time, if anybody wasn't paying attention, there was like...
That was controversial.
Yeah.
Very.
There are people going and rating either game, depending on which side you fell on, rating either game, 10s and 0s to try and, like, flip that. Like, there are people who are...
They're balance votes or whatever.
There's people who, like, still, you can go through Pandemic or Twilight Struggle and see reviews where the comments are, I'm rating this a 0 to balance out all the 10s. It's like, well...
I hate people that do that.
It's fucking stupid. And if you do that, you're a terrible person.
I hate people that rate a game before they've played it and then also be like, oh man, everyone's saying 10s. I'm going to rate this as 0. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Twilight Struggle's now fallen to 3rd. Through the Ages, a new story has moved up even above it.
Yep.
Well, Through the Ages...
Second edition?
First edition was...
That's what I said, a new story.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
The first edition was up there for a long time.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's still 18.
Yeah.
Like, there are 2 versions of Through the Ages that are in the top 20.
Yes.
I think it's interesting, like...
And yet you didn't like it, Adrian.
I've only played it once. It was at the end of a long convention, and I just played Indonesia. I'm willing to give it a second chance.
I'm hearing excuses. That's
And Terraforming Mars is only 1,000th of a point away from passing Terra Mystica.
Quick, everybody go vote it up.
Yep.
Vote it a 10 to balance out all those load runs.
yeah, in this case, it's okay.
I mean,
the game is
Because we say it's okay.
yes.
the average rating of Terraforming Mars is higher than Terra Mystica, the average user rating. But BGG has the geek rating and the average rating that are different sometimes.
It's number 4. Jesus.
Yeah, Gloomhaven has been taking off.
I think it's deserved, but anyway, that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why did I only have it raised that? Okay, I've edited my rating to a 10.
I've only played it once, so I don't have it rated.
I thought you played it twice. with us.
I've only played it once.
Was it only once and then we kicked you out?
Yes.
Oh,
Sons of bitches. Anyhow, I don't know. Is there any final thoughts anybody wants to chime in on how your biases and
I think
how you feel about biases, things like that?
I think BGG has a lot of power.
Yeah.
In what's popular, what people see.
Oh yeah.
I think it's the
Oh,
same sort of
yeah.
way as like Rotten Tomatoes for movies.
Yep. Like one of the biggest fucking anchors out there has to be Board Game Geek, top to bottom.
I mean, you're definitely not wrong when I've picked up a game and it's like when I've looked at games, I was like, oh, but Board Game Geek rates it a 7 point whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
like, eh.
it's at the very least, it's good that they do their whatever weighted rating because if it only has 10 ratings, it could be at like a 9.5. And then, but they have, be like, oh, we're going to move that down because obviously it's not a 9.5 because only 10 people have rated it that way.
I mean, like, just glancing here at some of the top, like, of the top 15, like, I can totally understand why almost every one of those games is in the top 15.
You say almost. I'm curious why.
Well, I mean, so I, like, having not played Castles of Burgundy at number 10, I can't really say. The number one, the one that most stands out to me is Seven Wonders Duel. I don't understand why that's anywhere near the top 10.
I figured you'd say
I really like that, but I wouldn't rate it top 10.
What did you think I'd say?
Great Western. Because I thought you said 15.
I did, and
Great Western Trail.
Great Western Trail's one that, although I actively dislike that game, I understand why people do like it. Now, if we go to the top 20, then all of a sudden a lot more jumps in there that I don't know why it's so high. Like, Blood Rage, man, I struggle to understand why Blood Rage has so much love. Like,
Mage Knight for me.
it was saying, like, well, I've never played Mage Knight.
I did not like it at all. Anyway, but that's beside the point. Like
Yeah.
you said. That one I did because it was so highly rated. I was like, oh shit, everybody loves this game, and I was going in positive, and after I'd done it, I was like, why the fuck did everybody like this game?
Yeah.
So even with positive opinions, I think your internal biases, you can be like, for whatever reason, it just be like, even though everybody loved this, I fucking hated this game.
Yeah.
It's small shifts, but
Yeah.
they're important shifts.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I was just talking about how I haven't heard hardly anybody talk about Mechs vs. Minions recently. It's sitting at 21. Like, it's still very highly rated.
Yeah, I wish there was a way to tell, like, how many votes it's getting in a certain period of time. Like,
Yeah.
how far has it moved?
It shows,
in the last...
well, I mean, I don't know about time, but, like, total number of voters is right there.
Yes.
Like, Pandemic Legacy
But how
has
long-
20,000, whereas Gloomhaven only has 4,700.
Yeah.
Like, Gloomhaven I could see falling. Like, it's blowing up right now because it's still right in that peak of it being awesome. Like,
Or just goes higher when that
it could.
second run hits stores.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I didn't think Pandemic Legacy would last 2 years at the number one spot, and it has. So who knows?
I mean, that might be even partially to do with availability. Like, you can buy Pandemic Legacy Season 1 for a reasonable price, literally anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Amazon's showing it at like $54.
Well, and I know a decent amount of
reasonable.
like reviewers and stuff, especially like Rado, that still is recommending that game at any point where they can actually recommend it.
Yeah.
So at some point, it comes from the new hotness to just this was legitimately like the fact that it has been number one for over 2 years.
Oh, yeah. I think Pandemic Legacy is. But I mean, that's where I struggle because I would not say that about Seven Wonders Duel. I would not say like, oh, it's been in the top 10, for 2 years. It came out in 2015. I don't know when it broke into the top 10, but like, it's not a bad game. I wouldn't tell anybody they're wrong for enjoying Seven Wonders Duel, and I can understand why a lot of people do like it. I don't think it's one of the top 10 best board games ever made. Like, not even close. I think the fact that so many of the top 10 are from within the last 2 years shows that hotness is a thing that and is becoming more of a thing.
The Cult of the New?
Yeah.
They ought to run a reverse Reddit algorithm where like what's on top of Reddit is based on very much of what's hot right now. And over time, one vote means less to where it is and it doesn't stick around to the top. If they had some way to reverse that algorithm and say that weight the votes based on how many of them there are and how long they've been on the list, that might help to give a better idea of what's actually good long term.
Yeah.
But that's not what those rankings are for.
Well, so one of the ones that I think is a great way to do this is if you pull up that list and then search by number of votes, then you end up with a top 10 of...
Like a lot of the classics.
I mean, and that just makes sense. If a game's been out longer, you're going to have more votes.
I mean, if you do by strict number of voters, yeah, that's not necessarily the best because then you get your top
Right.
five.
But there should be a way to weight the votes by how old the game is and how many votes there are for it and stuff like that.
Don's number one.
Well, the top five. If you go by strict number of votes, the top five, unsurprisingly, Catan, Carcassonne, Pandemic, Dominion, Seven Wonders,
which are undoubtedly like some of the
five
highest
best intro games.
Exactly,
Like,
yeah,
or
so-
at least not the best, but they're the ones that
yeah.
whenever somebody says, "Oh, what's a good intro game?" one of those five is getting mentioned,
If not all of them.
if not all of them. And then you continue on: Ticket to Ride, Agricola, Puerto Rico, Small World, Power Grid.
Yeah, that's
again,
not-
like the who's who of like the beginning of the board game resurgence in the early 2000s. Like,
And Catan was 251, so I was right. It was in the 200s.
yes, you were. Yeah, I don't know. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. Do your research. Look at a variety of sources. Take the individual biases of your reviewers into account. Hopefully you know them. I wear my biases on my sleeve. Dice hate me almost as much as I hate them.
Yep, I read it right there.
Yeah.
I love dice. They're
I
my
love
friend.
Dice are great. Yeah.
Guy, playing D&D last weekend, I rolled a 17 on the same die like 5 times.
Oh God, see, and there's always exceptions. Like I love craps, which is all dice. I love D&D. Like I wish I got to play more of it. I really want to play with you after you talked about your DMing.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, you need.
No,
to be
my
DM.
DMing style is very much challenge the player's character's convictions.
Oh my God, see that gets me fired up, man. I want to play. All right, let's wrap this up though. This is the final. We're not doing a part 3 of biases and reviews. There was just a couple things.
We still have to do the and part. Thank you very much.
the and part.
Yeah, we did the biases and we've done the review, the journalism ethics. We still have to do and. No.
There was no Oxford commas anywhere in that statement.
No.
Well, what I'd like to say about and is...
Was objectivity going to be the thing you
And.
talked about, Zach? Was that the
No.
other one?
No.
I don't remember what.
Well, he's just saying
what
that
came
and
after
is a word in that sentence.
Yes.
It needs to be talked about.
Exactly.
God. And is a
And.
great way of tying concepts together, and that will bring our discussion to a close. Which leaves just a little bit of time here for us to jump over to our BGG Guild
Yes.
and see some responses to the posts we had about this. There were no posts to the new one.
No.
It was posted at like 5 p.m. today.
No, it was posted at like 3:35, 3:40 this today. But
Quick,
that's
Jeff, pull it up. What was the timestamp?
I was just looking and I...
4:46.
Yep.
Impressive.
Not 5. Before 5.
Yeah, not 3:30 either.
Yeah.
Beside the point.
Anyway, on the...
Closer if you're including Price is Right rules.
On the older episode there,
Yes.
from episode 64,
We
where
did have a
discussed-
comment on that.
Okay. And what was the new comment since we wrapped up the episode?
Yep. So Matt said, I may be late to the party on this, but I think there can be biases in both directions. If you get a higher priced or a higher in demand game for free, then your views might be slightly more positive, as with the inverse. You spend $250 on a Kickstarter and get the bells and whistles. You thought you did your research, and in the end, it's just Monopoly with nice minis. Burn the bitch. If any game companies want to test my theory, you can send your games to me at ...
I don't think sending things to ... is going to get games anywhere.
Game companies try it out. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's where I think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely an aspect of that, like how much you pay for something affecting.
Has there been any time where you've paid a lot of money for a game and you're like, I better fucking like this game?
Not necessarily so much with that, but there's definitely been times where like I've paid very little for a game and then been like, oh God, this game sucks. I'm glad I didn't waste a lot of money on it. But I guess that's still not a positive feeling towards the game. That's just a relief that I didn't waste even more money than I already did.
Yeah.
I don't know. Zombicide would be the closest I've come to spending just a shit ton of money on a game that just really sits in the closet and collects dust. I mean, like all the things I like about Zombicide that led me to paying all that money, I still like about it. I have less and less time to devote to that game.
Yeah, I know for me, the nostalgia / $700 I spent on HeroScape.
Yeah.
Which I've got a new place with a folding card table, so who wants to come play?
But yeah, I mean, I think there's some of what Matt was saying there. Like there's a little bit of.
I think there have been instances where I've paid for paying a lot for a game. You're like, oh, I really hope I like this game. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, especially like in the lead up to that game, But then once you have it, like I don't know if I've played a game that I feel like I've liked more because I spent a lot of money on it.
I mean, I'm hoping that with Rising Sun.
Well, I'm hoping that with Feudum and with
yeah.
Well, at least I've already played and know I love Brass, so I'm not as worried with that Kickstarter. But those are the two I've spent the most money on recently. I don't know.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff?
I spent a lot of money on Z-Apocalypse.
Do you like the game?
It's not that good.
In spite of the money, or even with the money,
or do you feel like you wanted to like that, like you tried to like that more because you spent so much money on it, or were you pretty much immediately like it's not that good?
Right, like if you had spent half as much money on it, would it be an acceptable amount of fun?
It's still a bad game.
Okay,
it's too long. It's way too long.
Gotcha.
Like Twilight Imperium levels of like way too long.
I mean, that's one of my biggest problems with Zombicide these days. I don't remember the last time I had a reasonable 2-hour game of Zombicide.
That's how I felt last time I played Small World. I love that game. I own that game, and I played it at Black Sky a couple of weeks ago, and it just went on and on and on.
I've played that game once, and I was like, never again.
Yeah, we're not going to be reviewing Small World.
No, enough people have.
Yeah, seriously. We'll occasionally throw back to an older game, but it's not going to be Small World.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening in and putting up.
There
with
was
us for
one
so
more.
long. What's the one more on BGG, Zach?
Mike just saying to Patrick's thing about I'm lowering our Patreon or his Patreon to 50 cents now. Mike just said mail it to them in pennies. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if I get a big box of pennies, I'm just
okay
going
with
to take
that.
it down to
It's only
Colorado
50.
Springs.
It's not going to be that big of a box.
I'm going to take
If you get a big box with just 50 pennies.
With bubble wrap.
Yes.
Or the peanuts.
Peanuts.
Yeah, the packing peanuts.
Oh my God.
And the pennies are taped to the peanuts.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, it wouldn't be that hard. Shake it around. The pennies will pull those heavier peanuts to the bottom.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Patrick, do this.
Yeah, somebody send me a big box full of 50 cents of pennies.
Just give them your address, Adrian.
Over the
It's
air
dot,
right now.
dot.
Yeah. Apartment A.
But all right, well, thanks everybody for listening. We certainly appreciate you putting up with our inane ramblings, as we've established.
Yeah.
Our inane. Thank you to everybody who appreciates our non-objective reviews. Continues to listen and support us. That's pretty awesome. Jeff, if any of those people wanted to get a hold of us, how could they do that?
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
Yeah.
Nailed it. You can find us on Twitter. I tweet under at MHGameGuys.
I am Zach_MHGG.
And I'm Jeff_MHGG.
And Wes, what do you tweet under?
Pathetic life form.
You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram /Mile High Game Guys. Be sure to jump over to our Board Game Geek Guild, guild number 2731, where Zach swears he will have a post up this Friday, which would be while you're listening to this episode.
Not while, by the end of Friday.
Okay, we'll give it to the
Depending
end of
on
the day
what
Friday.
Time you listen to this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
So
about check right now?
he
No?
says
Okay, how about now?
he will have a thread up for next week's review, which will be, drumroll, Lisboa. Oh, God. No. Stop, Zach. Stop.
I'm sure that
stop.
looks real good.
But you said
not-
drum rolls, and
Can you even hear it?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
Oh,
can
yeah.
hear it
That's
a
going to
lot.
be coming through in the audio.
I could have done it like on the metal things, but that would have been worse.
Oh, I'm sure that would have been worse.
Yeah.
See, that sounds more like an actual drum roll.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And the drum roll can end. Lisboa. We'll be reviewing Lisboa next week. So check out the Board Game Geek Guild to see Zach's post. Ask us your questions, thoughts, feelings, whatever. And if you jump over there Friday evening and there's not a post, feel free to make a post berating Zach for failing to live up to his promises.
That's no, okay.
I know
Friday
I will.
at 2000, not 2000, motherfucker.
In the year
at
2000.
midnight.
In the year 25,
Wait, you have to wait until 11:59 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. After that, then you can.
I'm pretty sure we're still in daylight time.
Are we? Okay.
Anyway, yeah, keep an eye out on the Board Game Geek Guild. There will be a thread up for our Lisboa review where you can give us your thoughts and feelings and questions about Lisboa that we will answer next week on the show. Yeah, until then, I've been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I'm Objective Jeff.
You want to clear your throat?
I think it's better with the raspy. And thanks for joining us, Wes.
Thank you, Wes.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
All right,
All right, bye.
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 Zach?
Pause.
Okay.
I just want to let you know I bought the expansion, this the Splendor expansion, and Betrayal at Baldur's Gate as well.
I was going to buy the ball that came out today.
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm really glad about both. I'm actually glad about the Splendor expansion and the Baldur's Gate expansion.
Yeah, I want to play that Splendor expansion.
I was
All right.
like, oh shit, this came out today. Add this and add this and add this.
It's
Oh,
only
it's $137. Okay, let's do
Speaking of anchoring,
Yeah, right?
It was only $35 for the Baldur's Gate.
Because
I
they
looked at it
tell you
earlier.
that $100 is a good deal because that's where you get free shipping. So
Yep.
you want to spend the money.
Yeah.
You know, it's-
So you can continue with
just
that.
cut out the part where you said cut.
Yes.
where we all
Bring something
to the table
pull up a chair
at punchboardmedia.com.